Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show. Join you every morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Thank you as always for making this a part of your morning routines. It is very much appreciated. I hope that you can hear me, you can see me. I've had some kind of audio things going on in the headphones, but I'm hoping that it's fine. It's like if I tap this, I can hear that, but I can't. It doesn't feel like I can hear myself. It's very, very strange. So I'm hoping that you can hear and see me all right. Do let me know in the chat box. Good morning, everybody joining us live. Thank you for doing so. It means a lot, as always. Good morning to AB, to Old Dave, to Trader. I know that YouTube and StreamYard has already mugged you guys off. Good morning to Barry. Fly says, I was watching old watch-along videos the other day of Tom and Hugh Wizzy losing their minds. Does anyone know what happened to Hugh Wizzy? As he's not uploaded videos for a little while. I don't know what's happened with Hugh, actually. But I really enjoyed doing those watch-alongs. Me and Hugh had a lot of fun. I remember the West Ham game in particular where we drew 3-3. We were 3-0 down and we came back to draw 3-3. There's a very, very famous clip of me and Hugh celebrating that third goal. So, yeah, certainly that was very, very good indeed. Morning to Stephen and Ansa and Ray and Marcus, Louis, Rob, Shari, and plenty more of you guys and gals as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and thank you for all the support over the weekend. It was kind of crazy in the end because in what I thought, I think still, to be fair, is certainly in an international break for content creation, the most challenging days are always going to be the weekend, but a testament to the community, the family that we have here. You guys ended up getting more likes on Saturday and Sunday than we managed to get on any previous day of this international break so far. And that just goes to show how legendary, I nearly swore then, how legendary you all are. So thank you so much. I've seen so many messages a little bit like this. Global House Sitter says, good morning, Tom. I usually only listen on Spotify, but I'm here to like the video. And I've seen so many people message me that, just listen on audio, just listen on Spotify or iTunes or other platforms, Amazon, I guess, and things like that, that have hopped over to YouTube, to tell me that they've seen my face for the first time, are scared by it. No, I'm only joking. And secondly, just to drop a like on the YouTube video to see if they can help be part of this family. And it's great. And if we continue to do this, we've got 5 days. And if in 5 days we can get 1K on each of those 5 days, we're going to release the tickets a little bit early for the live event in February to try and get it's a limited venue. So I will give you good warning about the time and the date that I will release it, so that I'm going to try and release it during kind of an early afternoon UK, because I feel like that's when the US wake up. That's kind of when the eastern areas are more going to sleep and stuff. So it's covering all bases. For anyone that's traveling over, I want to give everybody the equal opportunity to try and get a ticket if they can, because it's a smaller venue than it was last time, so I wanted to make it a little bit more intimate and things like that, and pack out the room. So yeah, it's going to be exciting, it's going to be fun, and hopefully as many of you can come along as possible. Right, shall we go to the topics? I think we should. Let's jump into the topic, shall we? Despite it being the international break, Arsenal still managing a fantastic win over Brighton. Jonas Alderweireld side scoring 3 goals. From Caitlin Ford, from Blackstenius, and from Frida Marnham as well, a goal late on in the fixture to give them a 3-0 win and keep the pressure very much on Chelsea. Arsenal, as I've mentioned before, didn't have the best of starts regarding kind of the season and the Champions League. Disappointments, as we all very much well know, and you probably are fed up of me reminding you of at the moment. But the WSL table after the weekend's results looks like this: Chelsea on 19 points, Arsenal on 16 points, Manchester City on 13 points, Man United on 12, Spurs on 12, Liverpool on 11, Leicester on 8, Brighton on 7, Aston Villa on 6, Everton on 5, West Ham on 4, and Bristol City on 4. So Arsenal 3 points off the top after 7 games. Very similar, I guess, to where we're at kind of in the men's side of things in the Premier League. So things are going good. Form's really good. Cooney Cross is now in the first team and starting plenty of games as well, and is certainly making an impact. Lacasse as well has been starting plenty of games, and hopefully we're going to see these girls do a fantastic job continually, because that's what they're doing. And I have to say, Stina Blackstenius as well, to give a shout out to her, continues to be, for me, one of the most underrated players in our side. Continues to score goals, continues to be so consistent for us. And I never feel like she ever gets the the credit that she deserves, because all the talk's always around like Viv and Beth and now the new signings that have come in as well. But yes, Nina Blackstenius has done a fantastic job and continues to do so. Back into the men's side of things, and Gabriel Jesus is in full training with Brazil and is expected to start the game against Argentina for Brazil. This does mean, of course, that he will fly back to Arsenal with less than 72 hours before the game against Brentford. And the same goes for Martinelli. The same goes to Gabriel. There's an expectation that all three will start Brazil's game against Argentina. That's according to reports coming out of Brazil, as we discussed yesterday. But we got the images of Gabriel Jesus in full training, seemingly looking much more recovered than he was. It's a good and bad thing. You know, we've talked a little bit about this yesterday, so I won't go into too much detail, but hopefully we're going to focus on it being a good thing. Hopefully Jesus' involvement in this game will mean he'll be ready and back to play for Arsenal in the Premier League. Will he be in the squad for Brentford? Will we see Arteta go with a little stubborn approach and say, nope, we said he's not ready? And we're like, well, he played for Brazil. No, not ready yet. We're not going to use him. Maybe that's what we'll see. We'll have to wait and see if that ends up happening indeed. Moving into transfers, and according to the Tribute OM, Marseille are apparently interested in taking Fabio Vieira on loan. Fabio Vieira, of course, started off the season quite well for Arsenal, but opportunities have not been necessarily so forthcoming recently, and he is serving a 3-match ban after the international break for that horrible tackle that he made against Burnley. I say horrible. It was innocent in some ways, but it was endangering the opponent with the studs coming down on the knee and things and down on the shin, I guess. So you got to be careful of those challenges, and it wasn't great, and he deserved the red. But he's a talented player. It's just never seemed to be the consistency that he needs to succeed. And so maybe a loan move away to Marseille, where we've had success. We've had not so much success since Tavares and Saliba have, juxtaposed kind of performances and careers after their low moves to Marseille. Maybe Fabio Vieira will be the one that benefits the most from a potential move. So yes, let's wait and see. But our final and headline story is according to Italian outlet Tutta Juve. So you know what emoji needs to be thrown into the chat box, people. According to reports coming out of Italy, Dusan Vlahovic is said to be back on the menu. It's back on the menu, boys, for Arsenal. And Arsenal are said to be in competition with a number of clubs, including Real Madrid, for a potential move for the Serbian striker. We talked about Dusan Vlahovic the other day. Someone asked a question in our Q&A section about Vlahovic and whether or not we would want him. And I'd actually not even really looked at his goal record so far this season, and it's not great. He's got something like 4 or 5 goals in 12 or so games. It's not a great record for a player of the caliber of Vlahovic, for the money that he would cost, for the money that he did cost. So we'll have to wait and see. Again, I know that those words are being used a lot this morning, but that is what we're going to be doing, is theorizing and using hypotheticals, because whether or not we see Dusan Vlahovic at Arsenal after so many months and seemingly years of talk, he is again linked with a move to the Gunners. But the reports are emerging from Italy, which have proven in the past to not necessarily be the most reliable, especially for Tutta Juve. So I guess let's wait and let's see what happens with Dusan Vlahovic. But a move in January, seemingly, if reports are to be believed, are on the cards. Right, let's move to part 2, shall we, and tackle your questions right after this. Right, let's jump into the chat box and go through some of these questions. But before we do, if you haven't already done so already, please do drop a like on the video. Just one click of that button really helps us out as we continue our challenge of 1K every day across the international break, and seeing if we can get the next 5 days completed. We've ticked off, 7 days worth of 1K likes so far, and we've got 5 days left to complete the challenge. So let's see if this family, this community, continue to surprise and show that we certainly can achieve this. Right. Okay. Kevin says, I'm doing the Emirates Stadium tour today. Any tips and advice from anyone? Kevin, that's a fantastic thing to do for the first time. If you're doing it indeed for the first time, enjoy it. If you're doing the Legends tour, you'll have a great time. If you're not doing the Legends tour, you'll also have a great time because they're fantastic opportunities for fans to see the inner workings of the stadium. You'll get to see where I work. You'll see I think you get taken through the press lounge, I'm pretty sure, and into the press conference room as well. So yeah, take a picture in front where Arteta usually sits. You can take a picture if you sit in the front row. That's usually where I'll pop up if I'm ever in there in the Emirates. So yeah, take some pictures in the press conference room. Enjoy the Diamond Club and see what that looks like, where the directors sit, etc. It's a good experience. So yeah, learn some stuff and take in the sights of the Emirates. Marcus says, "Will we get 1,000 likes? Let's wait and see." Yes. let's wait and see. Andrew says it's become a drinking game almost. If you're like based in the eastern areas of the world where the time zones are more to the evening, you could definitely do a drinking game. With the amount of times I'd say wait and see, we'll take a shot. Andrew says, Tom, instead of looking for a world number 9 where Martinelli and Trossard can conveniently play there interchangeably. Yeah, someone left a comment yesterday saying that we should be using Martinelli as a 9. I think that for me, Trossard at 9 and Martinelli on the left is a better combination. I think that works more. I think their understanding is really good playing with one another. So I would prefer to see Trossard and Martinelli start games together. Sabre says, why would we sign another project in Vlahovic when Victor Boniface looks world class and is potentially gettable as well? And I think that maybe moving for a younger player that's on the up rather than a player that needs to be revived in the case of Havertz and potentially in the case of Vlahovic, I agree, is the right way forwards for Arsenal. Cass says, I can see the only way Vlahovic moves coming to fruition is maybe if we swap with Thomas Partey. And Thomas Partey, of course, is being linked with Juventus. Maybe that's something that would help in a potential move for the Serbian striker. And World Citizen says, with Partey linked with a possible loan move to Juve, would you be open to a part exchange with Vlahovic in the summer? I have to wait until the summer and to see kind of what options are available. But if it gets a significant amount of money off a deal for Vlahovic and that's the striker that Arsenal and Arteta wants, then it might be the way forwards. But Arsenal, I think, need to focus on in January signing that central midfielder that can really reinforce the options that we've got in the middle of the park. Amira says, the next time you do a pod with Dr. Raj, any chance that you could ask about how much the quick change in time zones can affect players? I don't think players are given much time to readjust quickly. Potentially, yeah. I mean, our next one might be on Thursday. We've not done one for a little while because people have been very, very busy. The TGT sneeze making a return there. Sorry, yeah, I will certainly endeavour to get an insight into that one. But it's more to do with fatigue. Fatigue's obviously going to be a big part of that. You're tired. Your muscles maybe a little bit haven't had the chance to recover that sleep allows, and so I guess that would play into it. Ondavoli says, hey, Tom, have you seen David Dean's thoughts on Arsenal regarding the statement the club put out regarding VAR? He thinks it doesn't seem to give Arsenal a good image. I saw them in passing. I've seen like quotes, him saying that it wouldn't happen if he was at Arsenal. David Dean did a really good job in regards to what he did at Arsenal when he was with Arsene Wenger. He also was the one that brought Stan Kroenke into the club, and a lot of people that are really backing of him and yet very critical of Stan and KSE seem to forget that fact quite often and choose not to bring it up when they're so praising of it. But it's a different time. One of the big reasons why we had to move on from Arsene Wenger was because the football had changed. Football had moved on. Football had left Arsene Wenger behind. And I think the same can be said for David Dean at this stage. David Dean did a good job in what he did in his era, in his time, but football has changed and managers and their positions and their role and what they do and what they're expected in some ways has also changed. And so therefore, I think that to turn around and say that it wouldn't have happened if he was involved at Arsenal, I'm not sure Arteta would probably even be manager if David Dean was at Arsenal, and whether he would have kept Arsene Wenger for even longer. Who knows? We don't know. But I don't necessarily think that it just because David Dean says it means that it's true. Like it means that it's the right way or the only way. It's an opinion. I disagree with him, but it's an opinion. World Citizen says Andre looks like he's moving in January, so a loan with an obligation for Partey could open the door. Andre is that midfielder from Fluminense, Brazilian international. Very interestingly, exciting young player. One to keep an eye on. Is he the player that Arsenal will end up moving for? You know what? We'll have to wait and see. Pika Who says, Tom, any plans for tomorrow for the big day? I don't know what you're talking about, mate. What's tomorrow? I don't know what's going on. I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. No idea. No idea. Stuart says, "Aren't we close to having a full strength first 11 now? Jesus hopefully back. Partey not far away. Well, Partey will be more late December, I think. Apparently, are targeting the game against Liverpool on the 23rd of December. So we are very close, I suppose, to having a full strength 11 again. But Yuri and Timber's still out for a long, long time. So pretty close to a full strength 11, Stuart, but there's still some way to go. And maybe we might even have a new midfielder in January to add to that best 11, if indeed we can do the business that we need to do in January. Alpha says a TGT hat with a liquid holder behind the logo. Interesting. What? The little cans. Is that what you mean? Yes, that's how you should have that's the full viewing experience of TGTs. If you can get one of these caps and attach those like can holders with the little straws, that might be the way forwards. Pika who says that's what annoys me, Patrick. I enjoy listening to TalkSport, but the negativity towards Arsenal is bad. I mean, yeah, I really loved it when we had a lot more defence of Arsenal. Laura Woods, of course, who previously used to present on TalkSport, did a great job in defending Arsenal so often. Martin Keown does a really good job, I think, quite often of putting across the Arsenal point of view and defending Arsenal and being more grounded and objective about Arsenal. But there is a lot. We get a lot of stick. We get targeted a hell of a lot. And, being part of the TalkSport fan network here at TGT, I hope that one of the big reasons why I wanted to join up with that network and wanted to provide that network. So if you listen on audio platforms at the start of every episode, you hear the fan network intro. The reason why I agreed to be part of that was because I thought that we would provide more objectivity. We'd provide more positivity and a little bit more grounded thinking on the network regarding Arsenal. So that was one of the big reasons why I certainly wanted to join up as part of that and provide the Arsenal balance, if you like. Vihar says, people say Arteta complains, but Wenger used to moan all the time. I think people completely forget things as well. Wenger used to complain a lot and did get charged a number of times by the FA. So it's hardly like it never happened when David Dean was at the club as well. Kyle says, Tom, why is it that we rarely produce top defenders from our academy, especially centre-backs? We always produce midfielders and attackers. I mean, Ashley Cole was one of the best defenders to ever come out of the Arsenal academy. Best players to come out of the Arsenal academy was Ashley Cole. I think defenders are maybe perhaps a lot harder to produce in the same way. We've always kind of signed them. We've signed young players. You think about it. Saliba played a number of games with the youth side as well. But it's much more difficult, I think, because defenders tend to mature at an older age. Attackers tend to... You find that attackers develop at a younger age and defenders seem to mature and reach their peak perhaps at a slightly older age and develop slightly later because the mistakes that a young defender makes are usually relatively frequent throughout kind of a defender's growth. And so therefore teams tend to go and invest in defenders that are already producing that at a young age maybe, but more so at a more consistent level. So I think it's potentially because the pathway into the first team is a lot harder for younger players. And so therefore they tend to move on. But Ashley Cole is a great example. But again, it's not a recent one. We're talking early 2000s in regards to the last time. Really, I'm trying to think. Did we produce? I'm trying to think because Kieran Gibbs. What was Kieran Gibbs' story? He played plenty of games for Arsenal, but I wouldn't say he was like top. He did come through our academy, of course, but he left Arsenal in 2019 for West Brom. He played 137 league appearances. How many total appearances for Arsenal? 230. So, Kieran Gibbs is another. Hector Bellerin is also another example as well. A player that came through the academy. I say came through the academy. He was signed at 16, sure, but he played several years during, in that youth academy as well. Clichy. I don't know when did Clichy sign for Arsenal? Let's have a quick look. Gael Clichy signed for Arsenal. I mean, he didn't come through the academy. He signed in 2003 from Cannes. He came through the Cannes Youth Academy and plenty of others in France. So he doesn't really count, Marcus, I'm afraid. But Bellerin and Gibbs, I'd count in there as well. Centre halves, though, don't really. When did we sign? Just doing another check on another name that's popped into my head. Johan Juro, we signed in 2003, spent 1 year in the youth academy before making his debut at a senior level in 2004. Left Arsenal in 2014. Sol Campbell. He did spend time in a certain North London academy, but just not Arsenal. Did he come through the Spurs academy, Sol Campbell? Let's have a quick look. Sol Campbell. What was his career? Yeah, he did. 1989 to 1992. Played for Tottenham for 9 years, 255 appearances for Spurs before moving to Arsenal in 2001. I was never really old enough or conscious enough at the time to really experience that move and appreciate it for what it was. I do now. I do appreciate it for what it was now. But at the time, I was only... I would have been 7 to make people feel old. So yeah, at the time, I certainly wasn't able to experience that in the same way as I know plenty of our listeners did, and knew the gravity of that move. But yeah, it's been a long time since we've produced, I say, a centre half. Tony Adams, I suppose, is the most recent example of a centre half that's really made it at Arsenal. Other than that, it's mainly fullbacks, be it Cole, be it Gibbs, be it Bellerin. So maybe it'll be a Raw Waters. Maybe it'll be someone like that. But at the moment, I don't necessarily look at the centre-backs in the Arsenal team and think, Foran, Monlu. I don't look at those guys and think, yeah, I can see their futures in the long term being Arsenal. I could be wrong, and I hope they do prove me wrong, because it would be for the benefit of Arsenal. But yeah, difficult, that one. Very, very difficult. Pika, who says Dixon? Oh, we signed Dixon from... Who did we sign Dixon? Was it not Sheffield? Who was it? Did we sign Lee Dixon from? Someone up north. Someone, they are screaming it in the chat box now as I try and frantically search for it. We signed Dixon from Stoke. We signed somewhere. I said somewhere up north. So yeah, Stoke is where we signed. Martin Keown, yeah, he obviously left Arsenal and came back to Arsenal. But certainly Dixon and Bold came through. Yeah, Boldy was Stoke as well. Yeah, indeed. We developed those guys into the players that they became ultimately at Arsenal as well. So there you go. But there's a history lesson. We don't tend to do that here, but we've done it today. Amira says, do you think the physicality is part of the reason defenders maybe develop later? Being small would benefit attackers if they're quick and agile, or defenders might need time to bulk up? It's a really, really good point. It's a really, really good point. Players certainly do develop those more physical attributes, you'd say, more into their mid-20s. They're still growing, they're still developing at that stage. They're still the muscle work that they do at that age that can help with that as well. So, yeah, certainly I think that's a big, big part of it. Whereas wingers and attackers don't necessarily need that same level of, I suppose, biological maturity, if you like. But that's definitely a part of it. Arsenal Adventure says, is this the longest and most boring international break, or what? Arguably last year's World Cup. I know the World Cup was on, but it was such a long time in the middle of the season without any Arsenal. That was, in particular, quite long. For those that hate international football, it would have probably been the worst. So the World Cup last year, I know there was a World Cup on, so it was different. But I feel as though that period was really quite a lot. It would have been a real struggle for those that have no interest and really do check out of international football, even during those international tournaments. So arguably 2022 winter was still certainly one of the worst periods that we had. Cole says, seriously, I also think it's the club style of play as well. Maybe that's one of the big reasons as to why we struggle to get those defenders coming through, because there's so much emphasis on ability and technical skill and dynamism that defenders don't necessarily come through at Arsenal in the same way. Temi says Christian Bielik. We signed Christian Bielik from Poland at a young age, and he did play a fair few games for the youth side, but never made it at Arsenal. We went to Derby and has now gone to... He went to Charlton, and then he went to Derby, and then he went to Birmingham. I want to say Birmingham. I think that's where Bielik is. I don't know if he's left Birmingham since then, but that is where he was. He still does play for Birmingham, yes. So there you go. Knowledge of Arsenal's youth players and where they've gone to. Stuart says, it doesn't help that this is the third international break already this season. It's the way that it goes. It's the way that it goes. Pico says, don't you think watching England is boring? There's no class. I fall asleep watching them, and the favouritism towards the players. If we are playing a small-sided squad, why aren't we having good rotation? I get constantly frustrated with the England national sides. I have a lot of criticisms of Gareth Southgate. I personally think that a better coach, a better manager would already have us having won a major tournament by now. And sadly, I feel like this golden generation has been somewhat underwhelming under Southgate, and continual mistakes are made. I hope he proves me wrong, because I hope England do go on to win a tournament, and we've got the squad to be able to do it. We've got the players to be able to do it. Saka, Bellingham, Foden, Kane still very much scoring week in, week out at Bayern Munich these days. Declan Rice. We've got so many £100 million players in that team that we should, without question, be in a position to win these tournaments. But yeah, very strange. Pico says, serious question, why no Ben White? And again, that is a question that I guess only Ben White and the England national team genuinely know the answer to. Darren says, Tom, is Gasirovsky, the Spanish under-18s Valencia centre-half, a project worth pursuing, or is Diamande the one to pursue, albeit more expensive? He would be a lot more expensive, and you'd argue he's a better player to go and pursue, because he gives you an immediate impact, whereas Gasirovsky is certainly a younger player that would go into the youth team first, probably go out on loan a bit. Yeah, that's a lot trickier to see. It's night and day, really, regarding those two. Diamande certainly is a far more accomplished player, senior player, whereas Gasirovsky is not. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's an interesting name. I'm assuming it has perhaps Eastern European heritage. Gasirovsky doesn't sound that Spanish, does it? So I'd be interested to know what his background is. Luke says, I think people forget how hard it is to win a major tournament. We progressed further in the last 3 major tournaments than any others in my admittedly relatively short lifetime. Yeah, I'm assuming that is that England or is that Arsenal? I'm assuming it's England. I think we have progressed further than any others, but we were obviously previously just not. We were known for getting to quarterfinals sometimes, but I think that's more down to the squad that we have. I think it's I think that we could have gone further. People say these things all the times about Southgate. It says, look where he's taken us. He got us to a World Cup semi-final, a European Championship final. And I'm saying, yeah, I get that. But I also think that a better coach wins us a European Championship and gets us to a World Cup final. We should have beaten Croatia. We should have beaten Italy. We didn't. So I think a better coach wins one of those and at least gets us to the final of the other one. Hussein says, this is like two people who don't know each other trying to keep up a conversation until our mutual friend, the Premier League, returns. I think we've done pretty well, Hussein, to be fair. We've covered a lot of ground. We've covered a lot of discussion about Arsenal during this international break. There's been a lot of news to talk about, lots of transfer talk, lots of obviously injury and team news things we've discussed as well. The women's team has kept us very entertained as well with another fantastic win this weekend. There's been lots going on. So even though it's not had Arsenal necessarily in the same way that we want them to, and trust me, we're going to have a lot of games to talk about in just over a week's time, because we've got games coming thick and fast. We've got obviously the Premier League, we've got the Champions League group stage games to finish top of the group. If we beat Lens, we finish top of the group, so we want to try and do that. And obviously we had that final game against PSV as well. But there's lots of excitement still to come. We've got big games against Brighton, Villa, Liverpool still to come. So up until Christmas, it's going to get very, very interesting indeed. And Arsenal need to make sure that they get maximum points. I think if Arsenal want to win the league, they can really only afford to drop 2 points in the next run of fixtures, with Brentford next, then Wolves, then Luton, then Brighton, then Villa, and then Liverpool. I think we can really only afford maybe to drop 2 to 4 points max if we want to win the league. That's the demand. That is the expectations around a team that is going to win the title. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be great. And I'm looking forward to it. I really, really am. Dan says, I'm a physiotherapist. And you're right, Tom. It mainly comes down to fatigue regarding reduction of recovery, and would be interesting to see the effects of attitude on circulation recovery, though. I guess that's the... like if you're on a long flight, circulation, how does it affect you if you're on a long flight, if you're sitting down for a long period of time? I guess players that are in those situations try and move about the plane as much as they can while in flight to keep the circulation as best they can, rather than sitting around for 12 to 15 hours or whatever it is to fly to Brazil. It's a very, very long flight indeed. So I hope that, you think that the research into that would be at a stage where they know how to deal with those things on flights and to be able to keep the players as active as they can during those long flights. Walter says, genuine curiosity. Where do English folk get the entitlement that they should be winning tournaments? England lost one in 1966. Last one in 1966. For me, Walter, it's not necessarily an entitlement about winning it. It's looking and assessing the squad. It's looking and assessing who we've played against and those types of things. So when England were knocked out of the World Cup, the European Championships by Iceland, they shouldn't have been knocked out by Iceland. They were better than Iceland. When we were knocked out of the European Championships by Portugal in rather controversial fashion back in, 2004, and then 2006 Germany. Who knocked us out in 2006? South Africa 2010 was Germany that knocked us out. Özil, of course, Müller scoring. 2006 though in Germany. Can anyone remember who knocked us out in 2006 in the World Cup in Germany? Tell me if you remember. That was the one that Italy won, right? Cannavaro lifting it against France. The famous was that the Zinedine Zidane header in 2006? I think it was. My international football knowledge is nowhere near as good as my club football knowledge. Portugal, did they knock us out again? Was it twice? Or was it Italy? No, it was Italy, wasn't it? So Italy Italy knocked us out when Andrea Pirlo did the little dink penalty. I thought that was 2012. So Portugal as well knocked us out in 2006 as well. The Zidane headbutt was in 2006, indeed. It's not about entitlement. It's about looking at the last few opponents that have knocked England out of tournaments. Iceland should not have knocked us out, the previous tournament, France, I don't have too much of an issue about the France one, but losing to Croatia in a World Cup semi-final, losing to Italy, who then didn't even qualify for the next tournament in the next one, it was mad. And again, England, you see on my head, is very much Arsenal. It's very much a secondary thing, international football for me. It's not about entitlement. Maybe it is for some fans, but it certainly isn't for me. It's just about the fact that every time England have got knocked out under Southgate, bar France, I've always felt as though we've underachieved. And I think that's the issue for me with England. With the squad that's available, I've always felt like we've underachieved. And so it's not entitlement. It's not the same. It's not the same. Anyway, we're going to end the show there because, as I say, when we start going off on these tangents, it's always a good sign to bring things back round. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in and listening. It's very much appreciated. Do drop a like on the video before you leave. It really does help us out on our challenge to hit 1K every day of this international break. Have a fantastic start to your week. I'll be back with you tomorrow. I'll also be on with Sophie tonight on the Highbury squad for a brief moment as well. And then I'll see you tomorrow for the 21st of November. So I'll see you again very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.